Good evening. Welcome to Northbeat. I'm Joseph Ho. The Yukon Hospital Corporation has released a report on problems it had sterilizing surgical tools this year. The problem was at the Whitehorse General Hospital and led to 165 surgeries being canceled. The report says the problem was related to water and steam quality. The issue has been resolved and canceled surgeries have been rescheduled. The Chief of Staff for Yukon Hospitals says Whitehorse General has adopted new procedures to prevent it from happening again.
Deciding and recognizing that you have to preserve equipment for a potential emergency, knowing that there's a person scheduled, and then deciding, is it okay for me to go ahead or not? That is a profound moral and ethical issue on the providers that was really difficult for them to go through. And I have so much respect for my colleagues who navigated that.
The problem started in late January. For 2 months, medical devices and instruments were flown to a BC hospital for sterilization. While there was enough sterile equipment to handle emergencies, Kemet says the situation was hard on patients and doctors. Hazy, smoky air hovering over Yellowknife and southern parts of the Northwest Territories is coming from Alberta wildfires. Environment Canada's Air Quality Health Index is showing a moderate risk level tonight. That means most people should reconsider outdoor activities if they develop a cough or sore throat. That is especially so for elders, people with heart conditions, and pregnant women. There is currently one active wildfire burning in the territory near Fort Smith. Meanwhile, wildfires burning across the prairies have forced thousands from their homes. In Manitoba alone, officials have ordered 17,000 people to evacuate. Hot, dry conditions are adding fuel to an already dire situation. CBC's Cameron McIntosh is on the ground in Winnipeg.
The fire, within 3 kilometers of Flin Flon. Most residents did not take long to heed the evacuation order. Within hours, traffic bumper to bumper 200 kilometers down the highway in the Paw. Many of those people,
this is Rico,
like Gina Malate and her family, making their way to evacuee centers in Winnipeg.
There's lots of what if there's a fire ahead of us, and then we're going to be trapped. So it's very scary.
The city clearing out overnight, fire lines still holding by morning, town officials staying behind providing updates.
No assets are burning within our community and municipality boundary at this time, so we're pretty grateful for that.
The Flin Flon fire is the top of many firefighting priorities in Manitoba, as several communities across the north also evacuate. This other fire threatening the communities of Pimichikamak and Cross Lake, where the airport is on fire, forcing 5,000 people to rapidly get on the road.
Nothing can be done with this fire approaching because it's huge and crowning and going this way and that way, unpredictable.
Most fleeing to the nearest airport where they'll need to be airlifted with the help of the Royal Canadian Air Force.
Today we're declaring a provincial wildfire state of emergency.
Meanwhile, in Saskatchewan, a state of emergency as massive fires north of Prince Albert remain out of control. Across the north, thousands have left small communities and work sites as firefighters face ever-changing conditions.
It's a magnitude 6, which is the largest possible fire they can have. It makes it very tough to do any sort of attack on that.
And in Alberta, where heat advisories are covering much of the province, preparations for tough days ahead.
That if a new fire starts, it will grab hold quick and it will spread really fast. And existing fires have the potential for extreme fire behavior.
Across all 3 provinces, heat remains in the forecast with virtually no rain, conditions prone to feed wildfires. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Firefighters in Yellowknife were dousing flames today in the area below historic Pilots Monument. A local resident told CBC an abandoned shack was on fire. Crews were able to stop the fire from spreading to nearby trees. They had reduced it to smoldering remains by 8 a.m. Pilot's Monument is the highest point in Yellowknife's Old Town. It is a popular tourist attraction and also a residential area that was once home to many prospectors' shacks and cabins. A lawsuit over the right to Inuktitut education in Nunavut can now go ahead after a Supreme Court of Canada decision. Two Inuit mothers and Nunavut Tungavik Incorporated launched the suit in October 2021. They cited discrimination over the lack of Inuktitut education in the territory. In November, the Nunavut government appealed to the Supreme Court to have the case thrown out. The top court dismissed the appeal today. Legally, the Nunavut government was supposed to have full Inuktitut education in place for all grades by 2020. They missed that deadline. Instead, they amended the Education Act to drop that requirement and reduce it to just one Inuit language course. NTI's president says today's court decision is an important step towards preserving Inuit heritage.
Meaningful education for Inuit is to have education from kindergarten to grade 12, and at the same time in Inuktitut to revitalize, to safeguard our Inuktitut language.
The case is now closer to being heard in the Nunavut Court of Justice. The search for unmarked graves at former residential school sites is set to continue in the Yukon, but Indigenous leaders say they are concerned that support for their efforts is diminishing. Katrin Pilkington has the story.
Ground search efforts are just beginning in the Yukon, right here in Carcross. While it might look peaceful now, this is the former site of the Shutla Residential School. At the latest public update on search efforts, those leading the search say growing residential school denialism has them concerned.
Finally, we're acknowledged that, yes, we are telling the truth, but there's still people out there saying it's not true, it's not true. It's like the Holocaust. They're saying that's false information, but it's not. It's the truth, and we're speaking the truth.
She's not alone. Researchers from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission have also been seeing a rise in denialism on social media and from Canadian politicians.
These ideas of unmarked burial sites and missing children have been talked about and documented for quite a number of years. It just seems only recently that there's been this enormous pushback.
Part of that may be from a lack of understanding of the science behind searches for unmarked graves and confusing terminology, like the word anomaly.
So I avoid the use of the word anomaly in this kind of work. And instead, I like to focus instead on the specific objective criteria that we look at to make the interpretation that there might be that there is or might be an unmarked grave.
Whiting says there's no such thing in geophysics as a body detector or bone detector, but remote sensing tools can help us find clues in the soil that point to there being a gravesite, even after there are no longer physical remains. Combined with archival research, these tools help communities locate the final resting places of the children who never came home. While the efforts continue, investigators say they want to see more education and more sensitivity in discussions of unmarked burial searches at former residential schools. Katrin Pilkington, CBC News, Whitehorse.
Uvanga Nancy Okoyo Karadak Linda. Angapunga. Tatiwiyaw yung nang nimnut katimayok munimnut. Ukpernak tulungalo ikayok to inimnik King Charles Pingayono.
That is Nancy Karatak Lindell being sworn in today as Senator of Nunavut. She was appointed by former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in December. The territory's only seat was left vacant for almost a year. Karatak Lindell previously told CBC she wants to be the voice for those who haven't always had one, especially for those living in the North.
This astonishing world, with its infinite possibilities, calls to the world shapers, impact makers, visioneers, Together, let's unlock potential everywhere.
Welcome to your new home.
Mais il est trop chaud. He understands French. I'm not seeing this as a suicide.
Someone sure wanted us to think it was.
Gallagher is suspect number 1.
Tell me, was it the man's politics you didn't like, or the fact that he's living with your wife?
I know he's into something. I just gotta prove it.
No, we all have a past. Find his.
Be careful around Fitz. Donnie's got a lot of demons that tend to appear when no one expects it.
Hi, it's Yaya.
Am I a loser?
No job, no home.
No clue.
Really?
I need a fresh start. No. Hire me. I want to make our community a better place. Sup, kids?
Are you a drug dealer?
You're not down south anymore, Toto? Tell me everything.
Deal.
Is that Canada? Yeah.
I love it.
Incredible.
Imagine how good the TV's gonna look now.
Isn't it ironic? Don't you think?
Is it?
Is it?
See you there.
So, you want to watch the CBC News streaming channel? You can, wherever and whenever you want. Here's how to find us. We're on the CBC News app, on CBC Gem, and on your smart TV. Stream anytime, it's always free. CBC News.
Geese and ptarmigan are on the menu for Inuvik students this week. Youth from East 3 schools are learning how to pluck and prepare the local birds. The fowl were harvested from the Mackenzie Delta along the Inuvik-Tuk Highway. Des Lorraine stopped by to see for himself.
You got one!
Students of all ages are learning how to pluck the feathers and prepare the birds to cook. Every youth has an opportunity to get a hands-on education. Local knowledge keepers are here to help instruct the participants.
For me, it's more like showing my respect and gratitude for those who came before us or who's always teaching us how to survive, how to provide, how to share.
The community donated some of the geese, and others were harvested by the students themselves on the land.
Last week we took grade 7s, 8s, and 9s out along the highway, and we got 7 geese, so it was a nice, successful little hunt.
The youth are also getting an education on the birds and their traditional uses. Like the differences between plucking and skinning the geese, it all comes down to what you think tastes better.
And then underneath, there's the really soft, really fluffy feathers.
The students will continue to work with the geese all week at the Inuvik Native Band office. Community members are invited to come and see the work being done. Des Lorraine, CBC News, Inuvik.
One person to be working on the ptarmigan too.
Right here.
Yeah.
The Klondike Road Relay is preparing for a record-breaking year. The popular race between Skagway, Alaska and Whitehorse sells out early, often leaving disappointed runners and walkers on the sidelines. In 2024, the race capped out at 1,800. This year, organizers added almost 200 more spaces. There are fewer teams doing the entire relay due to tensions with the United States, but runners say they have options.
So folks that might not feel comfortable being in the United States can run a leg that's in Canada. We thought we would leave it to racers and teams to make those choices rather than us making any sort of choices for them.
The Klondike Road Relay runs September 5th and 6th. A U.S. federal appeals court has temporarily reinstated Donald Trump's global tariffs. This comes after a judgment from the U.S. Court of International Trade blocked many of the tariffs Trump imposed since taking office. Earlier, Prime Minister Mark Carney said he welcomed the decision, but said it's not enough. Kate McKenna has more.
This morning, the Prime Minister was optimistic about an American court ruling.
Mr. Speaker, the government welcomes yesterday's decision by the U.S. Court of International Trade, which is consistent with Canada's long-standing position that the U.S. IEEPA tariffs were unlawful as well as unjustified.
It was set to be the harshest blow yet to U.S. President Donald Trump's tariff regime, and ordered to block some tariffs, hurting Canadian industry.
I think it's a good ruling for us. I think, obviously, when the court rules, we should listen.
But by mid-afternoon, the tariffs were reinstated by an appeals court, meaning the trade war persists.
It therefore remains the top priority of Canada's new government to establish a new economic and security relationship with the United States and to strengthen our collaboration with reliable trading partners and allies around the world.
These daily twists and turns of the Trump administration causing uncertainty for Canadian businesses and communities.
For us as a business, it's kind of turned everything upside down on its head. We don't know really long-term plans. We're sort of taking it week by week.
The sooner we can have certainty in this, the sooner that upward pressure of cost escalation ends. The other thing the uncertainty is creating is it is stalling business decisions.
Our goal is very clear. We want no tariffs. We want all workers. We're protecting our economy so we can keep people working, keep them in business, support business and support families.
During the election campaign, Prime Minister Mark Carney painted the United States as an increasingly unreliable partner. He's promised to improve free trade between provinces and diversify trade with other countries. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
The AI job interview has arrived. Some employers are using artificial intelligence to help screen potential hires. Nisha Patel shows us what it's like for job seekers to have a make or break moment with a machine.
Wafa Shafiq is used to doing job interviews online, but she was shocked when her latest interviewer wasn't human.
I think it felt odd. I was caught off guard a couple of times.
Welcome to the interview for the Marketing Specialist 2 position.
She says the AI agent was extremely polite, though she felt something was missing.
There's no small talk, there was no nothing personal, and I wasn't able to really tell if my answers were landing or not.
Thank you for taking the time to interview today.
Shafiq and other job seekers are sharing clips on social media. These AI hiring bots can now screen, shortlist, and even talk to job candidates.
Do you have any questions about how this interview will go?
I do think that this will become the norm for a lot of industries. So think like a manufacturer, really large restaurant chains, warehousing. These are all areas where it's often really hard to hire for those roles.
Ashram Garamani created an AI recruiter called Ribbon AI just 2 years ago and already has 400 customers. He says the technology works around the clock and frees up human workers from tedious tasks like scheduling.
I think AI will be extremely important in hiring in the future, but I think there'll always be a human in the loop.
Still, AI is reshaping workplaces. IBM is cutting 8,000 jobs, mostly in its HR department. For some applicants, AI can add confusion to the process. Maureen Green had to end an interview herself because the AI wouldn't stop.
So an hour in, I'm like, so I don't mean to interrupt, but, it's been more than half an hour after the scheduled time of our interview. I just want to be mindful of your time, even though I'm like, it's an AI agent.
I decided to give it a try and test Ribbon AI's reactions.
How much do you get paid?
Haha, well, I'm just here to help with the interview process, so I don't have a paycheck.
Turns out I wasn't qualified, but being able to impress an AI could end up a critical skill amid predictions the technology will lead to more job losses. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning was released in theaters over the weekend. It is the 8th installment in the action-packed franchise and features the icon himself, Tom Cruise. Along with Cruise is a familiar face for many, Lucy Tulu-Gajuk. Tulu-Gajuk is from Igloolik, Nunavut. CBC's Eli Kakasik spoke to her about her role in the film. Have a look.
I cannot say too much about it at the moment as it's attending festivals, but I can share that I played a character named Tapisa. She's an Inuk who lives in Alaska, and she fell in love with an American.
So, like, how did the opportunity to start in Mission Impossible come to your face? Like, the final reckoning came about.
They reached out to me about 2 or 3 years ago. One afternoon, I was working on my feature film, Tautuk Tavuk, What We See, and they called me on my cell phone while I was in Igloolik office. I declined the first offer, and they called back the next day introducing who was producing this film. And once I heard Tom Cruise's name, I accepted the offer without thinking about work or my family. I just said, yes, of course.
Lucy, how did you get to prepare for this position with Mission Impossible?
Originally, I had 2 scenes, so I didn't really have much worry until I was actually in London, United Kingdom, that we were rehearsing, and the director and the producer offered more scenes. And so I ended up getting a lot more scenes than I thought originally. And I was going back and forth for 2 years.
Let's go back to Tom Cruise a little bit more. What was it like working with Tom Cruise? Did the two of you have many chances to interact on and off screens?
Yes, it was amazing to meet him for the first time. I followed his films when I was a teenager with my dear cousin. So when I first seen Tom in person, I felt like I was dreaming, and I went and shook his hand and then pinched my cheek because I had to make sure that I was awake and it was real. And sure enough, it was.
So, Lucy, what was your favorite moment that you can tell us either on or off screen while working on Mission Impossible? And tell us about the debrief of the scripts you had to go through.
There were quite a few nice moments with behind the scene or in front. I think my favorite part was being in Svalbard with the main actors and introducing them about the Arctic, how to prevent your hands from getting too cold, like to stick your thumb inside and that will help, or to avoid approaching polar bear. We saw polar bears, and I was telling them in our culture we strongly respect polar bears, and we don't wish to see one, otherwise it might come to you. So giving them that advice before we went to the ice was something that was very neat to share, and also that seal skin is part of our identity. It's part of our who we are. So sharing our culture in modern day was important for me to share with main actors and including Tom Cruise to say, okay, do you understand now the meaning of fur versus fake fur? So they learned firsthand how important it is to have a real fur when you're living in the north where the climate can be minus 40 and majority of our months is winter. So I think it was an eye opener to some that may have had animal rights thoughts that, oh, it's a survival. It's not just because. And they also learned that it's so important for Inuit to have traditional respect of the animals. We only take what we need. Those things were important for me to share with our cast and crew at Mission Impossible.
In Fort Smith, Northwest Territories, they're honoring their graduates in a new and very public way. Each grad has their own banner flying high from a telephone or hydro pole. The Thabacha Leadership Council is behind the initiative. They told CBC it's a priority to recognize and celebrate local grads and encourage young people to be future leaders. That is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, head to cbc.ca/north. I'm Joseph Ho. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.